Reporters on the ground who will be joining us from inside and outside the convention center. A lot of big developments, obviously. We've got excerpts of some of the speeches last night. We have Bernie Sanders being booed when he first came out and said, I'm with her. I'm with her. And then you've got also Michelle Obama saying the same thing. Oh, you're with her. She's a she, so it's okay, like the DNC memos said last year. We're doing whatever it takes. We don't care what voters say. We're going to put a woman in. So it's okay to get rid of voting as long as you have the gimmick. It's okay to block the voters as long as you have the stunt that it's a woman. Man, talk about emptiness. Talk about shallowness. We've got the Washington Post and others trying to spin this that it's okay to have the superdelegates basically ignoring what all the other delegates are saying who represent the voters, who were pledged to the voters. You know what is clear here? If they're willing to steal an election, if they're willing to steal a primary, they're willing to steal the big general election. And the big news that I've been reporting since Sunday with Roger Stone is the Trump camp is fully aware of that problem and is preparing major contingencies for it. So this is going to be a spectacular collision, as some polls have Donald Trump 10 points ahead, many 7 points, most scientific polls 5 points ahead. A minority of polls 4 points or 3 points, but all of it within the margin of error. That's a big deal. And there's obviously the whole closeted effect that most people are scared to say they're voting for Trump, especially if they're liberal trendies, because they're afraid of being called racist. And so they're very, very closeted in their activities. But my dead reckoning tells me Trump's probably, I think Trump's about 15 points ahead, and if we're able to reach the Bernie Sanders people that are the majority of Democratic voters and get them out of their mind control and get them to actually vote for Trump, not just for one of the third-party candidates because they hate Hillary rightfully so much, I think Trump could win by 25%, way bigger than Reagan's landslide of what they called 10% or so. And that's because there's a major political realignment. We can hardly find, whether it's Texas or California, New York or Pennsylvania, Florida, Oregon, we can hardly find anyone that supports Hillary. I was driving around Austin yesterday and saw Bernie Sanders stickers on every fifth or sixth car. And so I was driving up to a dental appointment, and then I drove all the way back to South Austin, then to West Austin. I was driving around for about 2 hours yesterday taking care of errands. Actually longer because thunderstorms hit and there was horrible traffic snarl going home. I was in traffic an hour, so I guess I was on the road 2.5 hours yesterday taking care of errands. It was one of those days. So I've been out of town. And there were just Bernie Sanders stickers everywhere. There were Donald Trump stickers everywhere. There were InfoWars stickers here and there. But there were just no Hillary stickers. I saw one Hillary sticker. One. Because when you're stuck in traffic and driving around in a giant city from basically the four corners of it, you start playing little games and stuff while you listen to the radio or, take phone calls and do business. And I was just on the lookout. Amazing. But that's what our reporters have found. Where are the Hillary supporters? And everybody's talking about this phenomenon. We can find almost no one on the streets that supports her. Most people say they're going to vote third party or for Trump. And these are hardcore liberals. So good job to them. I mean, I was really ashamed of the fact they weren't able to stop the theft by Hillary. But, I mean, what are they going to do? The mainstream media is allied with it. But what happens when the general public, local government, and others realize that the mainstream media is allied with foreign interests that have hijacked the nation and are basically suspending our elections? What happens at that point? That's the big question. We have more Islamic beheadings and attacks. We're going to get to all of it straight ahead. This is the 26th day of July 2016. I'm your host, Alex Jones. We're going to be here for the next 4 hours live, then kicking off at 11 a.m. tomorrow, all the way through till 3 p.m. the next day. That is 28 hours of live broadcast. We'll have some special reports and boil-down interviews and live reports from the ground in Philadelphia as Hillary is coronated queen, the first time in U.S. history that a presidential nominee publicly ignores a massive landslide by the other candidate, and where the super delegates newly created in the 1970s but never used openly steal the popular vote and appoint her the nominee. And if you think they're going to do that nakedly out in the middle of Plainview and not steal the general election, I got a bridge I want to sell you. But here's the good news. I don't need to get this information from Roger Stone or other folks close to Donald Trump. I can tell you point blank directly from Donald Trump, he is fully aware of what they're planning to do. And they are fully aware of the fact that he is surging way more than 4 or 5 points in national so-called scientific polls conducted by CNN and others. Those polls are completely spun, targeting Democrat voters, elderly people that have landlines and things like that. When you go out and do real focus groups, especially in battleground states, in some areas, he's gone from 3 to 5 points ahead to 10 points ahead. Now, if you were Hillary Clinton, who's already gone for broke and who's willing to do basically anything, what would you be pulling? We have over an hour of Nigel Farage interview that is not even aired yet because we got 3 different interviews with him. We've got some excerpts of that are going to air today that are very powerful. Obviously, the founder and leader of UKIP recently stepped down, but still the leader in spirit. We have a large part of that interview, about 40 minutes, that'll be airing never before seen tomorrow during the 28-hour transmission. And a lot of other interviews have never before been seen as well. Not just my co-hosts and anchors and reporters, not just our crew on the ground, not just a whole list of amazing guests. It's going to be a very, very important broadcast tomorrow where we really dig into every angle of what's happening in our society and track the latest things that are unfolding, not just here in the United States, but geopolitically. So definitely stay with us for that. Here's some of the headlines up on Infowars.com. This one by Steve Watson. Dems panic over Trump surge. Michelle Obama calls Trump hateful in DNC speech, while she talks about Obama wakes up in a house built by slaves. That'd be like if you were in the Roman Colosseum and you were Italian or have a Latin background and you started crying going, I had ancestors that might have been killed in here. I'm walking around. I mean, this is the craziest, just invoking of division anyone could ever imagine. It's so incredibly clear that that's the game here. And you have the new VP candidate of Hillary, Tim Kaine, promises bill to legalize illegal immigrants in first 100 days. And of course, that means legalize people with criminal records. That means legalize people that came here illegally. And all the people trying to come here legally, well, they're just thrown to the wayside. But obviously, let's get into the big story that's front and center. If you go to drudgereport.com, you can see an image of the priest that had his head chopped off this morning during morning mass. ISIS has celebrated the men who killed the priest and attacked and stabbed others, have given credit to ISIS, and I'm quite frankly surprised that even UK newspapers and French newspapers admitted it was Islamic terror, because with the machete attack, the hatchet attack, the shooting attack, and the bombing attack that ran from Friday through Sunday, I mean, we're talking about attacks every day now. In fact, there's so many attacks. There's several here I've got in the stack. I can't even keep track of them anymore because this is a worldwide ISIS offensive. I started telling people about 3 years ago when ISIS first came out with this new name. I said they fly the al-Qaeda flag. It's al-Qaeda renamed in Syria because our military is refusing to back them. They want to confuse the public and try to have us now back ISIS. When that failed, Turkey made a deal with NATO to bring them through and bring them into Europe to start a new crisis there. When you see 80% military-age men walking through Europe, getting on trains, and Merkel inviting them in, you know it's an organized plan. And I said, when they attack, when there's terror attacks, they will say it's not terror attacks, and they will say that anyone criticizing it will be arrested. That's now started happening. and that you have to have Islamic classes in all public and private schools so that you, quote, won't anger them. Germany started doing that 2 years ago. The United States is starting it next year under federal Common Core standards. Many schools have already begun it. You can just type in public schools teaching Islam to teach tolerance in wake of attacks. That's how they spin it. We cut your head off. We shoot you. We blow you up. We go in your nightclub and murder you. You have to turn your guns in. You have to turn your free speech in. And we have seen, remember yesterday, BBC scrubs Ali from Munich killer's name on TV in articles and on social media. And in some articles, they changed his name to David. In fact, here it is. His name's not been officially released, but he's being named locally. That's a weird way to spin it, as David Sonbali. Oh, man. I mean, whoa. Next level, man. Next level. ISIS always takes responsibility. They always take responsibility. The killers do, but it's never reported until about a week later in the back of the paper. In fact, I had liberal media in Cleveland many times look at me and say, "You're a liar. The mass shooting or the truck that ran over all the people in Nice, he didn't have accomplices. He wasn't Islamic." And it's like in the news he had 5 accomplices. In the news he was being coordinated. It's admitted that it was al-Qaeda training on how to use a vehicle. It's incredible. By the way, there's also this big white supremacist movement, a lot of it funded by Saudi Arabia and others we've learned, that is saying all these jihad attacks are being carried out by Israelis. Now, let me give you the facts, okay? If someone falls on a banana peel, a Jew didn't do it. Radical Islam does exist. It was a false flag to have NORAD stand down to allow the supposed hijackers back and forth when they were on a terrorist list. And that event of 9/11 was used to attack non-radical secular Muslim countries like Iraq and blame them for what the Wahhabists, bare minimum, were involved in on 9/11. So there are events where they're staged or where the door is opened up, and we expose those. But these aren't false flags to blame Muslims, because the controlled global media won't even say it's Muslims and covers it up with beyond 1984 newspeak and Ministry of Truth bizarreness. They're screaming Allah Akbar and pledging allegiance to ISIS, and they cover it up. He did that on the 911 tapes from the gay bar. And these other events, the McDonald's attacker, the guys that chopped the priest's head off and started stabbing people today in Normandy. I'm going to try to explain this to you. The false flag is that our governments are letting these people in and covering up what they're doing as a pretext to then take our liberties and set up a police state. That's the false flag. This is real terror. ISIS is hundreds and hundreds of thousands of fighters and allowed to recruit all over the West. I saw them being protected years ago under the name Al-Qaeda 5 years ago when they started the Syrian civil war. The globalists are running Islam. They're allowing the most radical forms of it to take over the entire religion and mass murder other Muslims. These attacks are real. And our government's bringing them in is real. And when they launch, these are probing attacks. I kept telling you, they're going to get larger and they're going to get closer together. We're being probed, we're being conditioned, we're being acclimated, we're being tested. This is a military technique where you do probing attacks that slowly increase until the enemy you're attacking gets used to being attacked, so the enemy doesn't get really upset and mount an offensive. If there's a big attack, like a 9/11 or a Pearl Harbor, they know you'll stand up and take action in a big way. But if you slowly escalate the attacks, you tend to actually evolve, in their words, or adapt to being killed. And that's why the French Prime Minister said 2 weeks ago, we must accept terror and live with it. And it's right-wingers criticizing Islam's fault. They're telling you, get used to it. And the Islamists have made deals with the leaders of France and Germany that they will be dhimmis, they will be